This is the Revo 3.3 Nitro by Traxxas. This is a really fun vehicle. I really do enjoy this one. It is four-wheel drive. Price, I think it was about $500 when I bought it. This is my friend Rod. You can follow him on Rod's Reels RCs. He has his Slash 4x4. It was a platinum model. So we're just going to run them just for kicks. And the reason why we chose the platinum model is the platinum model used to be, back when it was in production, about $400. Then you could buy your transmitter receiver. So you would be looking at about $500 as well. So price point, they're about the same. Nowadays, think of the Ultimate. So an electric is plug and play. The Revo, since I'm running it here on grass, also the temperature is different. I have to adjust the transmission. It's not shifting into second gear. That's because of the added resistance. It's not revving up high enough. But as you can see, the four-wheel drive, just battery, goes pretty fast. Now, this Slash does not have the original system. This has a Castle system. And I believe he is running 4S right now at the time. So that's something else to keep in mind. The Valenian system is only 3S capable, well 2 or 3S, so it's up to 3S capable. The motor would heat up way too fast. That's why he decided to go with the Castle system. But if you're just starting, you would probably keep the Valenian system. You would just be geared a little lower. Maybe you'd be running 2S, or if you run 3S, just gear a little lower. You would probably have, I believe, the spur's in the 50s. It might be a 54 spur. I could be wrong. Please put in the comments. Pinion, you would probably be running a 12 tooth, maybe. You may even want to go down to a 10. It just depends. Actually, no. 10 tooth. That's if you're running 2.8 tires. Yeah, you probably 13 would probably be good. 12, 13 pinion. But here I'm just adjusting the transmission on the Revo down there. There's my cameraman, and my wife's recording as she always does. But these are some of the things to consider when you're considering an RC car. Do you want a nitro or do you want electric? If it's your very first RC, the electric is a lot easier. And one of the reasons why we're just rolling the camera, so you can see how my friend Rod just plugged in a battery and he is running while I'm still trying to adjust the transmission. Later on, I'm going to have to adjust the carburetor as well, because again, it was tuned for different weather. And the temperature is going to affect it. Easy Start system is a pretty good system. I do like it. A lot of people hate it and they'd rather use a pull start. I think you could even do a start top box. I'm not sure about that one. I used to use a start top box when I had my 10 scale Nitro back in the day. This is years ago, over a decade ago. 2 decades, almost 2 decades ago. And that was convenient. Pull start, if it's warm and your engine's tuned, it's easy. If your engine's not tuned or if it's cold, it takes quite a while. You're just pulling on that thing, but here we go. So with Nitro, this is something that you're going to have to do. To be honest, I don't mind it. I get to wrench on the vehicle, tune it, and then once you get it right, they run so smooth. In some of the other videos I've said this, just the sound, they sound amazing, and the smell is actually pretty nice, as long as you don't get a hard hit from the nitro smell. But again, if you look at the electric, it just keeps running. Now the purpose of this video is not to say, do you want to get a Nitro Revo versus a Traxxas Slash 4-wheel drive? Because they're completely different vehicles, not just because it's electric and nitro, just because one's a monster truck, the other one's a short course. I don't have access to an e-Revo at the time. I would have to ask a nephew to borrow it, borrow his, to compare them side by side, and then I could do electric Revo versus nitro Revo. This is just in general, so you can see if you get a nitro, some of the things that you're going to have to do versus electric. That's really what I'm comparing here. I have to run. Luckily the tubing is long enough so the truck's not going to die. But I mean, just listen to it. Nitro just sounds awesome. They're just really, really fun. Probably not something you want to run at night, depending on where you live. Your neighbors may complain. But once you get that 2-speed transmission adjusted, I'm not going to run it in pavement, but in pavement it just sounds awesome when it takes off and then it shifts into second gear. Now that's an SR10, so that's another example of another electric that you can get. That one's less expensive. That one's a more affordable car. But I want to come back, a little lean. Watch, it's going to try to run off. It's too lean. So I'm going to try bridging the fuel. And the problem with that is, see how it's going? That's just going to put more wear on your clutch. So that's something to keep in mind. And there's the SR10. So the SR10 is just running on the grass. It can run. It bounces a lot. SR10 is not really meant for grass. I bet he's just driving it for kicks and giggles. I wanted to get some footage, so he's helping me out. Again, follow my friend at Rods Reels RCs on Instagram. He's got a lot of really cool stuff. And I mean, the more people he gets to watch his stuff, the more of his RCs I can borrow or work on. And if you do see him on Instagram, just let him know that I sent you. Just tell him, hey, you know, I was watching a video from Telecomando RC, and you know, we talked about your channel, so I figured I'd check it out or something. Just let him know that I referred you. But there's the SR10. It's running. I mean, he's on the pavement. Pavement runs fine, but now on grass it bounces a lot. On the dark green grass, that's taller grass, it actually gets stuck from time to time. But on this yellow grass, since there's less of it, it generally runs. I mean, keep in mind that the SR10 is similar to drag cars, as in it's a short course chassis with buggy arms. Here we go. So notice this time how much runtime I've gotten compared to the electric cars. So again, I'm not comparing the Revo to the SR10, two completely different cars. I mean, if you were going to be running on this type of terrain, you would get the Revo because it's a monster truck, not the dirt oval car. Right, but that's not what we're comparing. So might as well just top off. I have about half tank right now. And this is actually one of the differences too. Eventually, he's going to run out of juice and he's not going to have any batteries and doesn't have a place to charge. Whereas I can just keep pouring fuel. As long as I have fuel in my can, I can keep just putting fuel in the fuel tank and keep running. Just need to make sure that the engine cools down. Now I'm not going to go through a full tune, I'm just trying to richen up the fuel mixture just a little, because I messed with the idle mixture and then the top end mixture a bit too. Maybe at some point I'll make a video about tuning an engine, just the basics, so if you are planning on doing nitro, at some point I'll probably do one. Or maybe by the time you watch this video, I will already have that other video. We'll see.
spend more time wrenching than driving.
Now, by the time you watch this video, hopefully I will have the teardown videos of this four-wheel drive Slash. We'll see. But they're pretty good. You can get the brushed version for a lot less. When they first came out, the brushed versions were maybe about 260, 270. Now I think they've gone up to about $300 as of the time of this video. But there we go. I mean, notice how fast the electric takes off. Keep in mind again, that's 4S, it's not 2S. If it were 2S or 3, I think 3S is a fair comparison with the Nitro 3.3, with the stock engine 3.3. 4S on electric, it's just a lot of torque. Electric has a lot of torque on the steady.
Traxxas doesn't license up.
Now, one thing to note on the grass, especially on that green section where the grass is taller, that adds a lot of resistance, rolling resistance to the vehicle. So it does take the engine more effort to accelerate. You will be wearing out the clutch a lot faster. I've already replaced the clutch system once. Little pads wore down to the point where it's wore down the spring, and then the spring broke. So what ended up happening is, as soon as I started the engine, the clutch would engage. So as soon as I placed the truck on the ground, well, if it was on the air, it would turn on, so the engine would engage, and then the tires would just start spinning. As soon as I placed it on the ground, it would die. If the truck was on the ground, it would not, the engine would not engage, and that's because of the clutch, so I had to replace it. But now, if you look at the way they jump, the Nitro jumps, it jumps well. These are some of the small jumps. There's another video that I have where I take some larger jumps. But Nitros, despite of the weight distribution, they handle well, they jump well, so it's not really something you have to worry about too much for bashing. If you're racing an electric versus a Nitro, then there might be a bigger difference because of the center of gravity. But here, just for bashing, I wouldn't worry about it. Now, would you want a monster truck or a short course for something like this? One of the things that you will notice here is the monster truck is more composed. It absorbs all of the imperfections, the bumps, better than the short course. If you look at the short course, it's very bouncy in this terrain. And one of the reasons why is because it's lower. You have smaller diameter tires versus the monster truck. I'm going to turn it back on. This is something that also happens with Nitros. Once in a while, you'll get a flame out. And when you get a flame out, well, you have to go fetch it. I'm just hopping off. Might as well. Then you have to start the engine once again. Versus the electric, it flips. Just flip it over and you keep running. So these are things to keep in mind when you're choosing an electric versus a monster truck. Sorry, versus a Nitro truck. Now, my first Nitro car was an HPI RS43 SS. Forget the size of the engine, but they came out of the box with about a 1 horsepower engine. I don't know why engines are rated in horsepower instead of torque. I have no idea. It's just something that I've always wondered, especially with Nitro. But that was my first Nitro RC, and back then, this is before lithium batteries, Nitro was the way to go. Nickel metal hydride batteries, I mean, they're not the best, but at the time they were the better batteries versus the nickel cadmium. Nickel cadmium didn't really get much runtime, voltage sagged a lot. But things have changed, so now electric vehicles are very powerful. You can get different types of batteries, different sizes, different voltages, depending on the system that you have, your ESC and motor combination. That's something to consider.
I had to land that, or your dad's gonna tell
Now, right here, this short course, again, it's electric, it keeps running. I would say that with Nitro, it is normal to spend, say, the first 10 minutes just kind of setting it up for where you're running. Here, it's, well, it's been longer, right? But I would say that's pretty normal, unless humidity were the same every time, temperature were the same every time you ran the vehicle, then you wouldn't have an issue. Same type of fuel, but that's not the case. So if you see the electric, it keeps running. Now, I mentioned price, so $500 for both approximately. The other thing too is you need fuel. For the electric, you will need a battery. So you're going to be looking at about $50 for a decent charger, good charger. That will give you voltage reading, ohms, resistance, I think I said amps, etc. You can charge multiple types of batteries, and then you're going to need a battery depending on that. There are some inexpensive ones that you can get for about $35. There's some that are a little more expensive. Gen's Ace, very good batteries, very reliable, great for bashing. They last a long time if you take care of them. I mean, everything if you take care of it, right? So that's something to consider. And those batteries, I like Redline. Redline is my battery of choice when it comes to Gen's Ace. Those probably going to be about $80 to $120, depending on if it's 2S, 4S, and the milliamp hours. So there, if let's just say you had one battery, it really depends on the electronics that you are running. If you're running a system, for example, let's just say you were doing a Tekin RX8 ESC with a 2200 RPM motor, that's the large can, you're probably going to get 15 minutes out of a 2S battery, 6,000 milliamp hour battery. So that's something to keep in mind. But if you're running a smaller system, for example, let's just say it's the same ESC RX8, but you ran a 4300 RPM motor. See, this is what I like about the Revo. It has reverse. Say you were running the Pro HD motor, then your runtime is going to be longer. So that's something to keep in mind. But the point that I'm trying to make with this is you're going to need more than one battery if you're going to be out bashing for a longer period of time. So say you have 3 batteries. Alright, well there, if you bought decent batteries, that will give you, let's say, an hour runtime, hour and a half. Sometimes you can even get 2 hours out of those 3 batteries if you have a smaller system. For example, Hobbywig Easy Run Max 10 with a 3360 motor. You can get a long runtime with those batteries. You're looking at maybe about $150, unless you get bigger batteries, or the Redline batteries will be more. But at least $150 you're going to spend on batteries. With the charger, that's $200. Nitro, you can get about, depending on where you go buy the Nitro fuel, you probably get about 4 to 5 gallons of fuel. Each gallon, you're going to be able to fuel your vehicle a few times, and then you can just run it and run it and run it. So that's something to keep in mind. It just depends on how often you're going to be running the vehicle. So that's something else to consider, the cost of fuel versus the cost of batteries. Are you going to run it often, or are you going to run it seldomly? A quart of fuel is generally going to be about $15, up to 20. You can easily run a quart in one day. So if you run the vehicle 5 times, that's $100 in fuel, for example, give or take. So if you run very, very often, having more batteries may be less expensive, versus if you run seldomly, maybe not. Now here, there's the SR10 again. It's going. I keep losing body clips. That's the only thing I don't like about these Traxxas vehicles. Those rear body clips are always falling off. But anyway, other than that, that's the run for the monster truck. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you kind of get an idea of, you know, the difference between nitro and electric, and maybe which one you should get. Please comment, subscribe. Thanks for watching.
What? Oh, my hair! My arm! My rod!